Hello, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be reading books from the first Goodreads Choice Awards, specifically the nominees in the category of romance. I've been doing these videos for the past 4 years, and even in this short period of time, I've noticed how much the romance genre has kind of changed, and what trends are becoming more popular, and what trends are kind of going out of style. And it got me thinking, what did the first Goodreads Choice Awards look like? How far has romance come from then to now? So I hopped on Goodreads and I found the 2011 Goodreads Choice Award nominees, and wow, it was a sight to behold. Now, full transparency, I believe the Goodreads Choice Awards actually started in 2009. I could not find the nominees anywhere. The nominees actually show up on the Goodreads website in 2011, so I'm going to be reading the 2011 nominees. I don't have any huge goals for this video. I'm just really excited and interested to see how much romance has changed and if I'm able to find any gems amongst these old school romances. But while the romances that I'm reading for this video are old school, your insurance doesn't have to be. When I moved into my first apartment, I saw the lease agreement and I noticed there was a little section on it that said I needed renter's insurance to be able to actually move into my apartment. I'm gonna be honest with you, that did not even cross my mind prior to signing my lease. I was sort of at a loss. I was like, insurance, that's a big adult thing that I hadn't really considered. You know, I'd been on my parents' like health insurance for a while, but yeah, I had never really considered what like homeowner's insurance or renter's insurance looked like. Whenever I tried to research renter's insurance, there were a lot of like buzzwords that kept coming up that I just didn't understand. Personal liability, coverage, claims, I was literally clueless. Luckily, I had a friend who graduated a year before me and told me that Lemonade was really the way to go when it comes to renter's insurance. They were like, it's super easy, just download the app, you're gonna get a quote quickly and you'll be able to understand the actual insurance terms. And I was like, I don't really believe you, but I'm gonna download the app and check it out for myself. And when I did download the app, I was really impressed by how easy it was. Just like my friend said, I should have listened to them, you know, older, wiser, etc. You input your information like your address and other information about like the things you own or the people living with you, and it gives you a quote so quickly, and you can like go in and change your coverage on certain things. It was just really seamless, and I loved the Lemonade app because it quickly told me like, hey, this is what personal liability means. And I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So basically, if someone comes over to my apartment and injures himself, breaks their leg, my insurance will actually have some coverage for that and will be able to kind of like provide for that person's medical bills, or at least part of them. It also protects your stuff from theft, from vandalism, from fire, and you can add on other coverages for like high ticket items. I knew when I moved into my apartment that I was going to be bringing along quite a few high ticket items, jewelry that I really wanted to make sure if it got stolen, like I'd be reimbursed for it, a nice computer, etc. And you're able to kind of like change those coverages in the policy in the app. It's like so easy. And I didn't realize like what peace of mind it would give me, but I went on a vacation like pretty early into my lease's term, really beautiful sunny vacation. And I knew if like, God forbid, a fire broke out, all of my things in my apartment would be protected. I could come back knowing that like, I could buy myself a new computer if it came to that. And like I said, it was super quick to sign up. I loved that I didn't have to like wait for paper to be sent to me in the mail. I mentioned the Lemonade app to my dad whenever I was signing up for renter's insurance because he was like asking me about it as a protective parent would. And I kind of told him how easy the app was, and he was like, back in my day, you know, it was a lot more complicated. We'd have to like get papers in the mail and sign them and send them back, and you don't have to do that with Lemonade. It's all in the app. Claims, you know, if something goes wrong, you can do that in the app as well. It's a breeze. And their policies start from just $5 a month for $10,000 worth of coverage. So again, like if something goes wrong, you're paying $5 a month for that peace of mind. Plus there's the added bonus of their give back feature. This was really stand out to me. Obviously this is not something that all insurance companies do. And when I saw this, I was like, okay, this is like a done deal for me. I have to use Lemonade. Basically they take a flat fee from their premiums to pay their expenses, and they use the rest of the money to pay claims. So if there's money left at the end of the year, Lemonade donates that money to charities chosen by their customers. So if you are a renter, don't miss out. Click the link in my description to check out Lemonade for yourself and see how quick and easy and honestly kind of fun it is to receive a quote. Thanks to Lemonade for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Now let's get to reading. In order of the votes that these books got, the nominees from the 2011 Goodreads Choice Awards in the category of romance. They really don't make them like they used to, and thank God for that. My first book that I finished this year is Dreams of a Dark Warrior. I gave it 1 star, so we're off to a fantastic start to this reading year. One of my goals for this year is to like get 50 5-star reads, and with challenges like this, will that happen? Who knows? Dreams of a Dark Warrior by Kresley Cole is a book about our main character who's like half Valkyrie, half lightning person. I'm looking at like the Goodreads synopsis so I can see exactly what they call her. We're just gonna go with Valkyrie Temptress, but she has like lightning powers that are very unique to her. First off, I don't know much about the Immortals After Dark series by Miss Kresley Cole. This is book number 10 in the series, and that's gonna be a running theme here. I don't know what it is about the 2010s, but it is all about the paranormal romance romance series, that's pretty much all that's recommended or all that is present in the Goodreads Choice Awards. There's definitely some outliers. There's 50 Shades. We're getting to that. But this one is about the Immortals After Dark. And I don't really have much context for the series because I attempted to read the first book a while ago and I don't know that I ever finished it. And if I did, I didn't like it. So I never carried on to the series. Cressley Cole is not an author that like I typically read from. And I'm pretty well versed, I would say, in paranormal romance. So anyway, this is about our main girl, our Valkyrie. Her name is Regan the Radiant. Also, sorry if you can hear Pepper in the background. It definitely sounds like macaroni in a pot, but he's definitely just eating his wet food. Regan the Radiant. She's a Valkyrie and she comes across a Celtic warrior who is named Aiden the Fierce. She's like 12 when she meets him and he sees her and he's like, oh my god, a Valkyrie. I have to marry this girl. Sir, she's 12 and it, like nothing untoward happens, but it's just so deeply uncomfortable the fact that he is like Jacob Renesmee style imprinting on this girl and it's like, you know what, you're gonna be mine, come back in a few years. And I mean, she does do that and they do end up in a relationship, but it's just deeply unsettling. So like, what a great start to a book. And then we carry on with the story. Did I mention that I already finished this one and gave it 1 star? I think I did, but this is not gonna be like a 50% update kind of vlog. I mean, like there will probably be some times when I update you while I'm reading, but Regan the Radiant, she meets Aiden the Fierce, and they spend some time together after she's 12. She like goes away, she comes back, and he's like training her, I guess, to be a warrior, and he's also training her in seduction, and I don't know that I know they do consummate their love, and it's pretty foul, to be honest. I didn't really enjoy the sexy scenes in this book at all. They were gross. I don't think the word turgid was used, but like about that level of gross. But don't worry, their love is short-lived. He ends up murdered, and Regan is sad to know that he is no longer there, but don't worry, he is going to be reincarnated time and again. Also, did I mention he's a berserker? That just means that he has a rage inside of him that builds and builds until he explodes, which is definitely very hot in a male love interest. I like a guy with some rage, right? Sees him time and again through the centuries as he is reincarnated until he's reincarnated into a torturer. Oh my god, how cool is that? Like, yes, he's a conqueror at one point. I think he is like a ship captain in another life. It would not be enough for him to just simply find Regan in one of those reincarnations. He has to be born into the present day, and he has to hate all immortals so much that he takes them and experiments on them. Like, he captures them, he keeps them locked up and tortures them and kills them and like flays them alive and stuff. Sorry, but that does not a handsome romance lead make. I think the point of the story was to have this like interesting, I'll find you in any lifetime sort of thing going on, also with the added effect of this sort of like enemies to lovers plotline. It did not work at all. And I'd like to think that maybe this book would have been better had I been given some context into this world. I don't think that the world building is done particularly well throughout the story. We know that there are different immortal creatures. We know that there's vampires and there's other, you know, like I said, immortal creatures, berserkers, etc. Although I don't think berserkers are immortal. I think they're just like, I don't know, rage bears. Our hero not fundamentally liking the species that his love is, like, that's not sexy to me. That's not enemies to lovers. That's just like foolishness, frankly. There were just so many things to dislike about this book. Here's the thing. Is this the worst thing that I've ever read? Absolutely not. Is it good objectively in any sense? I don't believe so. It's evidenced by the reviews as well, especially by my friends. In circumstances like this, I like to read reviews for my friends because I'm like, surely my friends will have something to say. So many people are saying that they loved Regan but did not enjoy Declan, and I think that's right. Also, there's this whole thing about the fact that he's like kind of impotent. Okay, he's a berserker, but he doesn't know that he's a berserker. He doesn't know that he has this rage inside of him. I mean, he knows he has the rage. He doesn't know why in his incarnation of himself, and so he drugs himself frequently so much that he is basically impotent and can't get his soldier standing at attention. We're supposed to be so impressed that Regan can make the blood rush to his other head, and I'm just like, that's not doing it for me personally. I don't think that's sexy. I don't think that's cute. There was just so much here that like was physically off-putting to me. It wasn't like the writing was terrible or but why? What about this was supposed to be sexy? This was not romantic. Okay, I don't need to rant anymore. It's been like 5 minutes of me ranting. This was bad. And what does it say about the state of romance in 2011? I think this says about what I expected about the state of romance in 2011. I was reading romance in 2011. I'm old. I was reading stuff like this. A lot of the books, actually, not a lot of the books on this list, but like a fair amount of them I'd heard of or was interested in, and the stuff I was reading around this time was paranormal romance, as I kind of implied earlier. Paranormal was such a big mainstay of the community in that time. I think with the advent of the Black Dagger Brotherhood series kind of taking off and getting really popular, other authors were kind of following in the footsteps of J.R. Ward. Not that she was the first, but I just think that it was very popular at the time. That and stuff like Nora Roberts. I don't think we had a lot of like modern contemporary romance like we do now, which thank God we do have it now. I think this just says that alpha males were really popular. That was definitely a thing, and that romance authors were not necessarily writing to modern sensibilities at the time, shall we say. I think like a lot of the actual fundamental romantic relationships in a lot of these books feels very antiquated, and it doesn't have any sort of like modern sensibility. I don't remember reading books where we really had softer heroes. I think the first soft hero that I read was a sadist in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, and he just traumatized. Like, I don't know necessarily even think he's like a soft hero. Misunderstood, but maybe not soft. So times have changed, and I think I'm grateful for that. But I'm gonna keep reading other books, and we can see if that holds up. You know, I'm assuming we're gonna find something great in here. To be honest, I will be a little bit sad if like 50 Shades is the best thing on this list, but the next book that we're reading is sure to be better, right? It's called The Darkest Surrender, and it is a book in a Gina Showalter series, I believe. Have I had luck with Gina Showalter or this series in the past? Also, no, I have not, but you know what? Holding out hope that this one's good. I'll update you at 50%. Okay, so I ended up DNFing The Darkest Surrender. I'm on a roll really with the paranormal romances right now. This was bad, and I couldn't get through it. The reviews for this were also indicating that the people who are fans of the series also didn't like it. I believe this is like the 8th book in the Underworld, is it Lords of the Underworld series? And it's about our two incredibly immature characters, Strider and Kaya. Kaya, at the beginning of the story, we learn is not a Valkyrie like in the last book, but a harpy, which from what I gather is kind of the same thing. I will say the intro to this book did entertain me. Kaya is one of these harpies. She is participating in the harpy games. It's like this vicious competition between different harpy clans, and they like kill each other, I guess. We also learn in this like opening scene that harpies have consorts, or men that are kind of enslaved to them. It's either one or the other, and they can only have one, and that is like for life. So if your consort dies, that's it. Like you don't get to have like a life partner. And our heroine is pretty young at the beginning of the story. She ends up trying to steal a consort from one of her fellow harpies, and that doesn't go to plan because that guy has a lot of power, and he ends up slaughtering like a ton of harpies. And so she is called, I think, like Kaya the Disappointment or something like that from there on out. But she has a pretty fun personality, definitely immature but sort of fun at the same time, and she has been, I guess, lusting after Strider for a while. My issue with this is that Strider wants nothing to do with our heroine at the beginning of the story. I just don't find that hot. Like, to me, that's an instant red flag. That's instantly like, I'm probably not going to like this. As the story carried on, there were like mounting reasons as to why this book just was not going to be for me. First of all, I think the magic and or like the lore of this world has just never really worked for me. I tried to read the first book. I do remember distinctly not really just like buying what was going on. The premise, I guess, of this world is that a bunch of immortal gods, I guess, like 12 dudes, opened Pandora's box, and they end up getting, I guess, like the bad parts of the world in them. Like there's a Lord of Wrath, a Lord of Deceit. This one is like, is it the Lord of Defeat or something like that Strider has in him? If he is ever challenged to anything, he has to carry through with it. So if someone's like, I challenge you to a duel, he has to do it, and he has this like propensity to want to win, and if he doesn't win, and he is in immense pain if he is defeated. I don't know, I just don't feel like that's very entertaining or interesting, and I don't really get the point of it. Like, I don't know, to me that's just like, okay, cool, and I guess they're trying to like gain artifacts. 4 artifacts can come together and I guess defeat Pandora's box, or like close Pandora's box so they don't have these like demons in them or something. I don't know, it's silliness. I didn't really like it. I mean, I guess it's all silliness. It's like paranormal romance, right? I mean, I love it, but also I don't love this book. Okay, so world, kind of not interesting. The fact that Strider is not really into Kaya at the beginning of the story, also kind of a red flag. He's like in love with someone else, or he was in love with someone else in another book. He ends up being like the rejected choice, I guess, and he is still kind of lusting after this woman, and he like kind of begrudgingly thinks Kaya is hot, but he doesn't want anything to do with her. He can't be in a relationship with her, and I didn't really understand why these two should be together. I just did not care about their relationship. In fact, I definitely thought Kaya deserved better. Even though she was a little immature, I feel like she deserved better than Strider, who obviously wanted someone else and not her. He also kind of begrudgingly becomes her consort and enters into this kind of like contract with her because they're going to a new Harpy Games. They haven't been in thousands of years, or Kaya's clan hasn't, because, you know, the shit went down. They're like, we don't really want you coming back. And they end up going to the Harpy Games, and she needs a consort, I guess, to like refuel her powers and stuff. She's like kind of vampiric, I think. She like feeds on blood. And he's like, I guess, because like the prize of this competition is like really great. I'm not going to spoil it for people who want to read, but the prize is really great. He wants that prize. And so he's like, okay, I'm gonna come and like help you and support you. I'm sorry, but like he's trash. He was only like lusting after her, and I want a guy who's obsessed with the heroine from day one, or an enemies to lover situation, and this was neither. It was just like, he's not very interested. He's just not into you, girl. That's really what we were getting from this. So I DNF'd that with a swiftness. I will say I'm surprised how similar the first 2 books that I had to read for this video are, and I'm surprised that this 3rd book that I am 50% into also feels so similar. So I'm 50% into Retribution by Sherilyn. Is it Sherilyn Kenyon? Yep, Sherilyn Kenyon. I have read like the first 8 books in the series. This is book 19 in a series. I don't know if like the rules have changed for the Goodreads Choice Awards, but I have noticed that basically from 2019 and before, it seemed like almost all of the nominees and all of the winners of the Goodreads Choice Awards in the category of romance were from series. And then it seems like the past 2 years, there haven't really been any series, like interwoven series, right? You might have like the 3rd book in a Tessa Bailey series, but like it's not really a series, you know what I mean? Like you can read them as standalones. That wasn't the case back in the day in the Goodreads Choice Awards, is something I'm learning. The 19th book in this series is interesting. So I do actually like the premise of this world better than the other 2, which makes sense because I have read 8 books in the series. So essentially, the Dark Hunter series is about dark hunters. They have not demons inside of them, they have their souls taken from them by the goddess Artemis, and they are supposed to hunt down essentially vampires. They are these creatures that when they turn 27, they have to make the decision whether or not they want to take the life of a human to continue living into immortality, and a lot of them make that choice, and so it is the Dark Hunter's responsibility to go out and like kill the vampires. And to me that's compelling, and when they like find their true love or something like that, I think they get their souls back. It's been a while, so I could be wrong on that, but it's kind of the general premise, and I think you're out of Artemis's service after that or something like that. I don't know, it's compelling. It's more interesting to me than the premise of the other series, and maybe that's just like, you know, because I have a fondness for the series and I have like a past with it, but I think it's a little bit more compelling. So we have our main characters here, Abby and Jess. I think Jess at the beginning of the story kills Abby's entire family. She is on a mission now to kill all dark hunters. She believes that the dark hunters are the ones that are killing humans and that they are the bad guys. She doesn't understand like the world and kind of how things are set up, but she learns once she is captured by Jess in her adulthood that she has been wrong and she has been killing the wrong people or like the wrong beings this entire time. And she has to really grapple with that, and also grapple with the fact that she has kind of unleashed demons on Earth, kind of unkillable demons. They are worse than like the vampiric creatures that roam the Earth. They are creatures that can walk the Earth at daytime, not just nighttime, and they're really hard to kill, and so she is responsible for like creating this madness, and the only way to save the world is for her to die. And I think that's going to make things difficult. This one kind of reminds me of the first book that we read because there's not reincarnation, but our heroine is like the great granddaughter of our hero's like first love, and he has been kind of like following this family, I guess, line the whole time. He was really into Abby's mom, I guess, has kind of like watched over Abby or like knows about Abby. I don't know. It's not as creepy certainly as the first book that I read for this video, but it's not much better. I will say I like that our heroine is having to like contend with the fact that she has been killing the wrong people the whole time, and like her worldview is completely wrong. I think that's a compelling argument. I think that's interesting. But Jess as a character seems very one note and boring to me. Like I don't really understand his motivations very well. I mean, I guess he's a dark hunter, so they all kind of have similar motivations, but I'm not really getting a lot from his personality, and I feel like in prior books I felt more for the heroes, and I also understood why they wanted to be with the heroines. This one, it's like, why would he want to be with her? Because she's like killing his people. Even if she does like a complete about face, like it seems a little weird. And also he only seems to be, again, physically attracted to her. And with paranormal, I have noticed that like physical attraction is definitely the most important thing, but also I feel like I need a little bit more. And I have read paranormal romance series where like there is a basis for the romance that is kind of like soul deep rather than just like you're hot. I think that Abby has run away from being in captivity, I guess, or like being captured by Jess, but I'm just not really like loving it. Like it's fine, and I'm gonna continue on with it, mostly because I have an audiobook version of this, whereas for The Darkest Surrender I had to like read it with my physical eyeballs. Thankfully I don't have to do that for this one, and it's not too terribly long, so I only have like an hour and a half left, and then I can carry on with something that is not paranormal romance. I'm back with a worse bun and Pepper eating wet food again. I'm here to like give you what you deserve, which is apparently listening to my cat eat wet food. I finished Retribution and I'm 50% into a book that is not paranormal romance. So, I mean, things are looking up for us, right? I don't know what I would rate this book. Maybe 2 stars, maybe 3 stars. It wasn't horrible, but I feel like I have some semi-red flags about this story. So I forgot to mention in the last clip I talked about this book that there is Native American mythology, I guess, included in this book. And while I saw some readers and reviewers talk about how they weren't sure that they appreciated the inclusion of the Native American mythology. It was more so that people weren't happy with the fact that this author apparently takes mythology from a bunch of different cultures and includes it in her stories, and they're like, we don't need more mythology. I didn't really see anyone point out the fact that this author's white, and who knows if any of this is like actual mythology for a particular group of indigenous peoples. I don't think that it is. Like, I think she kind of just made things up, and I don't want to say that for sure. I could be totally off base here. Maybe she did great research. I don't know that it was necessarily her place to like write that mythology into the story. It didn't really need to be included because the hero of the story is a white man, I'm like 99% sure. And then we also have a white woman heroine. There are just peripheral characters who are indigenous. And then, I don't know, I just feel like the romance here, like, it wasn't terrible. I feel like these two did have a fair amount of chemistry. I did like seeing our heroine, like I said, kind of like grow from her worldview a little bit. The ending of this book got a little bit messy and confusing for me. I think maybe because this is the 19th book in this series and I stopped at the 8th book, like maybe there would have been more for me to understand. I would have like cared for the characters that came in at the very end to kind of like help save the day. But I just feel like the ending sequence of this book was very, very confusing for me. And also there's an epilogue that like kind of didn't really, like, I didn't care about. I don't know. I think I'm gonna give this book 2 stars, and I think I'm good with leaving the paranormal romance in the past, right? There will be one more paranormal romance that we're gonna be reading. I have read it before and did enjoy it, so hopefully that is the case again upon reread. Who knows though? Honestly, who knows? Let's talk about something that I think I'm enjoying and that is not paranormal romance, okay? Call Me Irresistible by Miss, she's got 3 names and she really likes to use them, Susan Elizabeth Phillips. So funny enough, actually, this is not really related, but I looked up this author and I read her bio today, and it said that she is the pioneer of the sports romance genre, which I had no idea. I mean, that's super cool, especially since I was just talking about sports romance on my Instagram stories today. So shout out to Susan Elizabeth Phillips for just hooking it up for us. But this book is not a sports romance. This book is kind of interesting, actually, and it's giving me all of the like mid-2000s vibes, if you will. So we've got our main character, Megan, and she is in town for her best friend Lucy's wedding. Lucy is getting married to the town dude, Ted. And I don't believe either Lucy or Megan, no, I think Lucy is from this town. Megan is not. She is the daughter of some kind of famous people. Lucy is the daughter, I believe, of like a former president or something. So they all kind of like move through the upper crust of society or whatever. Lucy's gonna marry Ted, and Ted is the perfect man. Like, literally flawless. No one has any complaints about this man. He is kind. He like walks little old ladies across the street, like that kind of thing. Like, he is just the perfect man. When Megan meets him, she realizes that he is just not at all right for Lucy. Lucy ends up leaving him at the altar. And everybody assumes that Megan is the one who is responsible for this. And they would be right? Like, she definitely talked Lucy out of marrying this guy, even though it was definitely in Lucy's best interest. And now everybody kind of hates Megan, and she's stuck in town. Kind of, I think, gets cut off by her parents and her family and her friends because she's like 30 and hasn't really done anything with her life. And so she's having to kind of scramble to figure things out. She tries to skip town on her hotel bill, ends up getting like pulled over by Ted, of course, who's not a cop, but for some reason was with a cop. He ends up making Megan pay off her hotel bill by like working at the hotel as a maid. After she gets fired from that job, she's working as a caddy at the local golf club, and obviously has to be a caddy for Ted at one point. And they keep coming into contact with each other. There's an interest, I guess, in the town by some other guy who's like coming to town, and he's going to build like a huge golf resort, I believe. And he can't decide on a location, like if it's going to be San Antonio or Wynette, which is where we're at, this tiny small town. Ted's trying to do everything in his power to get this guy to like build in town because it'd be great for business, blah blah blah. And apparently this guy has some interest in our girl, and so she's having to stick around. Yeah, Ted just keeps coming into contact with Megan, and he's like, I don't like this girl, she kind of ruined my life. And I'm really liking the tension, I will say. This is definitely a slow moving, slow burning romance, but it is fun, honestly. I really like the interactions we have between Ted and Meg. Like, I'm curious to see kind of how they come together, and I want to see like some really good moments of tension and dialogue between the two. Like, there's already been moments of tension and dialogue, but I want to know them both on a deeper level. I feel like we kind of know Megan at this point and like know that she is kind of snooty. She's definitely having to deal with the whole fish out of water situation and everybody in town hating her. Ted, I want to know more about, because obviously like we think he is this perfect man, but is he really the perfect man? Like, there's got to be more than meets the eye, and we've had some hints that there might be more to him, but we haven't really gotten into his psyche and kind of like why he is the way that he is. So I'd be curious to see where this goes. I mean, I don't need to be curious because I'm going to read it. I'm going to finish this book. Already, this is more compelling than the other books that I've been reading, which is interesting because, again, like, paranormal is normally my thing. When you give me like the 19th book in a series and according to reviewers who love the series, it's a bad book, like, I'm gonna have a bad time. So I'm going to finish this book tonight. Then I'm going to get started on the next one, which I believe, oh, I lied. Okay, there actually is another paranormal romance, but this one is a Nalini Singh book. It's Kiss of Snow, which is a book in the Psy Changeling series, I believe. I read the first book in that series, and spoiler alert, didn't like it. I didn't like it. Are we surprised? Are we shocked? I don't like anything. That's not true. I like the Archangels series by Nalini Singh. I don't love Psy Changeling, but maybe this one's better. But yeah, I'm gonna finish Call Me Irresistible tonight and then start in on Kiss of Snow, and hopefully that goes good. All right, I think last time we talked, I was like 50% into Call Me Irresistible. I was really enjoying it. The sad thing is that the latter half of this book kind of let me down. Like, it wasn't the worst thing ever, and there were definitely redeeming qualities about this book, but not enough to give this book more than 3 stars. As I was kind of telling y'all, it was sort of an enemy-lover situation between Meg and Ted, and it kind of continued on in that vein. What I thought was really interesting is that they hook up pretty early on in the book, and Meg kind of tells us that it was an incredible experience and he was definitely very good at what he did, but that she didn't feel very connected to him, and that was probably why he had never like landed a woman long term, because he had like a picture perfect performance, but he wasn't willing to kind of like show parts of himself during the process, if that makes sense. And he definitely doesn't respond in the way that she wants him to. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. They continue to kind of carry on their sexual relationship as Meg is trying to kind of figure out her life. People are meddling, and she's also kind of like trying to politely turn down the guy that's in town who is trying to build this golf course in the small town. And everybody in town wants the golf course to happen, so she's in kind of a difficult situation. Like, she can't really turn this guy down, but she doesn't want to be with him, and he's also really pushy. Stuff kind of hits the fan. She ends up leaving town. She's also kind of rejected by Ted at the end of the book too, or like at the, I'd say like 75% mark. And he definitely has to do some groveling. He definitely has to like hunt her down. He doesn't know where she's at, and he tells her that he's in love with her. He wants to marry her. She's perfect for him, blah, blah, blah. And it was really sweet, but I just felt like I needed a little bit more from the actual romantic relationship development. Sure, they were sleeping together. Sure, they had some common interests. They were both really into environmentalism. I felt like there was way too much focus on the townspeople and not enough focus on the actual couple themselves. That being said, as just a book in general, it was a very enjoyable read. This is not like the swoon-worthy romance that I wanted it to be, but I'm not like mad at it. 3 stars, like, it was fine, and I actually would be interested to read more from this author in the future. The writing was definitely there, especially since she's like the, I guess, founder or creator of sports romance, like the genre. Let's talk about a book that I ended up DNFing, but in a good way. Is it Kiss of Snow? Yeah. So this is like the 8th book or something like that in the Psy Changeling series, and I had to kind of like Google to refresh my memory on the Psy Changeling world and kind of what it is, and I won't lie, that didn't help, and that's why I ended up DNFing this book. So this book, I can't remember the name of either the hero or the heroine because I DNF'd it pretty early on, but it is about 2 people. She is, I believe, a Psy, and she has decided that she doesn't want to be a Psy anymore, so she is living with a wolf pack, and he is the alpha of the pack. He's like, I don't know, 10 years older than her or something. It's an age gap romance, kind of forbidden. I was definitely intrigued by the romantic component of the story, but the peripherals and the plotline itself, I didn't really understand it because I don't really understand the Psy Changeling world. Like, I haven't been in the series very much. I've read the first book and that's it. And when I was reading reviews of this book, it said that you have to read the 7th book or like the book right before it to kind of understand this one, because a lot of stuff goes down in that prior book. Not all paranormal romance series you have to read in order. It really just depends. But this one, I think you really do to actually enjoy the story. Strangely enough, even though I'm DNFing this book, I'm actually now more interested in the series than I was when I read the first one. The first one, I just didn't really like the world, and I also didn't really like the characters I was reading about. Whenever I read the reviews for that one, a lot of the reviews were like, yeah, this one's okay, but you have to like get through it to get to the other books, and now I kind of understand that. So I'm kind of like, do I want to go back and read this series at some point? I might, because I do like Nalini Singh. I do want to finish out the Guild Hunter series at some point too. Anyway, I digress. I don't think this is a bad book. I could understand why this is nominated. I did have to DNF it, so, you know, sorry I couldn't give you more well-rounded feelings, but do we really want to hear me talk about paranormal romance again? Probably not, which is good, because we're moving on to another contemporary. I am 30% into Chasing Fire by Nora Roberts, and I'm really enjoying this book. This is about our fire jumper, I believe is what they call them, Rowan, and she is like a 2nd generation fire jumper. Her dad did it before her. She always really looked up to him. She was raised by him. because her mother died when she was like 12 or something like that, and she is head honcho. At the beginning, we understand that she's not necessarily in charge of the other fire jumpers, but she is definitely, or is it smoke jumper? I don't know. Basically, she fights wildfires. She gets to like parachute down and then fight wildfires, and it's really intense, and she does it with a bunch of different people, but she has been doing this for quite a while, and it's like her joy, her passion. She does it in, you know, the kind of fire season, and then on the off season in the winter, she just kind of chills or teaches yoga or something like that. But we are thrown into the beginning of a fire season, and we have some rookies that are coming into our girls' world. One of the rookies, his name is Gulliver, Gull for short, and he is immediately entranced with Rowan, who everybody calls the Swede. I guess everybody kind of has nicknames, and he just thinks she's so hot, so talented. He likes that she's tall and muscular and like has, I don't know, an attitude and a personality, which we love. I love a guy who is like into the strong heroine from day one, and he's just really persistent in his attention in a way that is not gross to me. And so I like the romantic relationship that's kind of burgeoning, but I also just really like everything else that's going on. I'm not sure if this is like a really well-researched book or if it's really true to the profession of fire jumping, smoke jumping, whatever it's called. I really like the way that the characters talk to each other. The dialogue makes it feel very immersive. You feel like you are kind of like in this sort of fire station, hanging out with everybody. You also don't feel like you're thrown into a situation where you're not understanding things. I obviously don't know every term that's thrown into this book. I don't know the tools that they're using to like fight the fires and chop trees down and stuff like that, but it doesn't matter because like I'm understanding what's going on. I like it. I think this book is going to turn into a murder mystery from what I can tell from the Goodreads reviews, so I don't really know how that's gonna go, but we've already had a run-in with a character who was like kind of doing some sketchy stuff to Rowan, kind of like as a vendetta, but I don't think that's gonna come into play, or at least I think that's like a red herring and there's gonna be another murder mystery plot. I don't know, but I'm curious to see kind of where things go with this book. This is like the only update I'll give you before I finish the book, mostly because I'm a little bit behind and I need to read this, and I need to read some more of Just Like Heaven by by Julia Quinn. I'm also going to be honest with you. I think I'm probably just going to give you a final feelings on Just Like Heaven, because oh my word, y'all, it is so freaking boring. I think the plane overhead is done circling. Fingers crossed, because it's so irritating. I did finish some books. Let's talk about them. Chasing Fire by Nora Roberts. I do want to say that like every book in this video is a letdown, because, you know, books have surprised me, ? I don't know. Okay, this one, I have to agree with a reviewer that it definitely doesn't have a plot, which is wild because there was a lot of stuff going on here. I just don't feel like anything felt very focused. There were definitely a lot of scenes of firefighting, and there were definitely romantic moments between hero and heroine, but I don't feel like the story really led in a direction that I was like super into, and there is sort of like an intrigue, murder mystery-ish plot that comes in, but I feel like you could kind of guess who done it from the beginning. It was like, why even bother including that? I feel like a lot of Nora Roberts books include plot lines like that, and I just like don't really understand the purpose. I don't want to say anything unkind about this book because I didn't hate it by any means. It's definitely like a 3-star read for me. It was fine. It was serviceable. I liked that our hero and heroine ended up together. I thought they were cute, but again, I'm gonna have to agree with another Goodreads reviewer that I feel like they were a little too perfect. Like they definitely had trauma in their past in that they had parents that were either like deceased or left when they were young, but the guy was really rich. Like he got an inheritance and was really, really rich, really handsome and just perfect and charming. And she was a 5'10" blonde who fights fires and teaches yoga. Like she's also really perfect. And I'm not saying that like I spend a lot of time thinking about that when I read a romance. I'm not like, oh, she's too perfect or he's too perfect. But I do want some characters with some flaws they really have to like work through. I didn't really feel like that was the case here. It felt like the will they won't they was a little bit contrived because they're grown adult people. Like why shouldn't they enter into a romantic relationship? Like I guess they don't want to be in a workplace relationship, or she didn't want to be in a workplace relationship. But other than that, like, what's the big deal? I don't know. It was fine. The books are getting better progressively. Well, mostly getting better as we carry on in terms of votes. I also finished Just Like Heaven, which I told y'all that I had gotten like 50% into already yesterday. I just finished it off, and I'm glad that I didn't update you with 50% because I think I would have said a lot of like kind things about this book. And while it wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, this is definitely not one of Julia Quinn's stronger books. It's about our hero and heroine, Honoria. Looks like Honoria, but it's Honoria, and our hero Marcus. She is the youngest sister of her family, the Smythe family, and we learn about them in some of the Bridgerton books. They put on these like horrible musicals, but everybody has to go. When I say musicals, it's just like them playing their instruments, I guess, musicals. They play their instruments, they're terrible. It's like an ongoing joke in the town that they're horrible, and everybody like knows they're bad, and Honoria knows that they're bad as well. Like her parents like kind of force her to do it. It's like a family tradition. Anyway, she is the youngest sister of her family. Her older brother's best friend is who she ends up falling for, and he kind of like gets injured at the beginning of the story, she is there for that injury and she kind of like nurses him back to health. That's like the majority of the book. But it wasn't fun. Like, I am all for a caretaking moment in a romance. Like, that is definitely something that I think is romantic and sweet. I really love From Lukov with Love for that reason. I think it can definitely bring characters together, especially characters who otherwise like wouldn't have a reason to be in contact. And I think it works really great in an enemies to lovers sense because you have to take care of someone who you don't really like. But in this book, like, they didn't dislike each other. So this sort of like plot line didn't totally make sense to me. It wasn't terrible, and like, I mean, I guess, yeah, he gets injured, so like it makes sense she would caretake. Besides the fact that you're not supposed to like be in a man's bedroom, and I guess that's like intimate way they can be together without being intimate. I just didn't really understand the purpose for that inclusion. I feel like there were other ways to create tension here. I just don't feel like any creative liberties were taken, I guess, with the tension. Like, I wanted there to be a push and pull, a will they, won't they, and the conflict of the story is so freaking weak. I'm just gonna tell you what it is. Sorry if you want to read this book, but also it's like, it's not really gonna ruin your experience of reading the book. The conflict is that Honoria reads a letter from her brother Daniel, and in his letter he mentions the fact that he has asked Marcus to watch over Honoria, and Honoria's like, oh, so he doesn't really have an interest in me. He just is doing things for my brother. Like, he's just being a nice guy. That is the conflict of the story. I just feel like that's really, really bland, especially considering there's no tension leading up to that. It'd be one thing if it was like enemies to lovers, or she doesn't understand why he's watching over her and then this happens, but like, it was just so lackluster. I don't know. The audiobook listening experience was great. Love Rosalind Landor. She does a fantastic job on all the Bridgerton novels, and I need to look up what other books she narrates because I would totally listen to anything that she narrates because she's awesome. But I just feel like the romance itself was very bland, and I don't know if I'd rate this 2 or 3 stars. I feel like this one I liked a little bit less than Chasing Fire. Chasing Fire, I would say, of all the books that we've read, is probably my favorite. In some ways, I think might be like tied with Call Me Irresistible. No, I would say it'd be like Chasing Fire, then Call Me Irresistible, then maybe this one, and then all of the paranormal romance at the bottom. But we have 3 more books to read. All, well, not all contemporaries. I'm jinxing myself, I really am. We have 2 contemporaries, and then we have a paranormal romance, again, that I liked and enjoyed and is a part of my favorite series, the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. So let me tell you, I am learning a lot of new words. I am like 50% into Hothead by Damon Suede. I don't know what I was necessarily expecting. I did read some Goodreads reviews that said this was pretty, like, you know, sexy, kind of graphic. I wasn't really expecting the language usage here. I've never really heard of the word dork being used in that way. That's a new one for me, and there's also just been some other choice language that I am just surprised by. So the story is about our 2 main characters, Griff, which I think is short for Griffin, and Dante. Griff is like a really tall, redheaded, like Scottish dude, I think, or Irish, I don't know. He's redheaded, has freckles, he wore a kilt at the beginning of the story. He's a New Yorker and he's a firefighter, and so is Dante, who is 5'10", dark-haired Italian dude. And Griff, we can tell at the beginning of the story, has a crush on Dante. And Dante is your typical straight dude firefighter, like very into women, and at the beginning of the story he's trying to convince Griff, like, oh, you should go home with that hot girl at the bar. And I think, like, Griff was married to a woman at one point, so it's not like he has known he's been gay this entire time or anything. But he has kind of figured out that he definitely has feelings for his best friend, and he's trying to figure out if it's just feelings for his best friend or if he's gay, and he went to a gay bar and, like, wasn't attracted to anyone, so he's not really sure. He's just really confused by his feelings. Meanwhile, Dante is in kind of a bad financial situation, and he is trying to earn some money quick, so his brownstone that he's trying to fix up doesn't get taken away from him, doesn't get foreclosed on. Decides that he is going to participate in some solo adult films, and he makes, I think, like $1,000 or something per video, and he thinks this is a great deal, especially compared to his measly salary from the fire precinct or whatever. Are they precincts with fire? I don't know. And he would get paid more if he had a friend involved, so he asks his good friend Griff, hey Griff, will you help me out? And since Griff is into Dante, he's like, sure. And it's interesting, we get to see them we get to see the lead up of them going there, but we don't actually get to see the scene, which I think is an interesting choice considering how much sexuality is like brought into the story. There's definitely a lot of talk about Griff's feelings in not only an emotional sense towards Dante, also a physical sense. Like, we definitely get detailed descriptions of his physicality and like how he's feeling, if you catch my drift. So I was surprised that we didn't actually get to see that scene. Maybe we'll see it once Griff has admitted his feelings to Dante, or there's like more of a mutual like love there. But at this point in the story, I think Griff, who I don't know how old he is, but he's living with his dad. I would say he's in his 30s, so it's kind of interesting he's living with his dad. But you know what, millennials, whatever. This wasn't written necessarily with millennials in mind. I think this was written in like 2011. Oh, 9/11 is a plot point in this book, or like something that affected both of these gentlemen. So if that's something triggering to you, I wouldn't pick this up. Dante asks Griff if he wants to move in with him and help him fix up the brownstone. So yeah, it's a book. I think I'm not disliking this. I was hoping that it would be a little bit more heartfelt and emotional, and I'm not really getting that. I think there's been care taken in trying to like flesh out the world, and I definitely like, I guess, the side characters. I like Dante's family, who we get to meet. Griff is like definitely a part of the family, but I guess I was just hoping that there would be more of a reason, I suppose, for Griff to feel so strongly towards Dante. We can definitely tell he loves him. It's not just a physical thing, but I just feel like there's something missing, and I don't feel like that's probably going to resolve itself, which is pretty sad, but who knows? I could be wrong. I'm going to continue with this book and see kind of where things lead. I am glad, again, that I am reading a male-male romance written by a man. Again, it's like exceedingly rare, so that is pretty cool. It is interesting to me that I just read 2 back-to-back pretty much firefighter romances. I guess maybe that was like a thing back in the day. I do think that uniformed romances were more popular, so I guess I'm not really surprised that there are 2 on the list. I'm gonna finish this book, and then I am going to cozy up with 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James. I know, what a thing to put me to bed, right? We have much to discuss, my friends. I have been reading like crazy with mixed results. Okay, so first off, I finished Hothead last night, and I don't know what to rate this book. The language usage continued in a way that I was really not shocked by necessarily, but definitely words for appendages that I have just never heard used before. So I guess hats off to Damon Suede for that. There was a slur that was used multiple times with regards to little people, and I really didn't appreciate that. It wasn't just like one time, it was repeated page after page as like an insult to the shorter guy in the couple. Like I really didn't understand why that was used time and again. I know this book was written in 2011, but it still just was unnecessary. Anyway, I just thought I'd point that out. I think it's hard to really like criticize this book in terms of the way that it was written, because this book was written in 2011. This was before people could actually get married in the United States if they were not a straight couple, but I feel like the romance still could have been more developed. It was very clear that this was supposed to be something that was wish fulfillment in a sense, because the 2 heroes, they get together, like, you know, they have these sexual experiences together. They kind of like admit their feelings for each other simultaneously. We actually have Dante admitting his feelings for Griff beforehand. He's like, I've actually liked you for a while, and Griff's like, oh my god, did you really? They enter into a romantic relationship. There's really no discussion about it. I mean, there's a brief discussion about the fact that they like each other, but there's not any discussion about like, are we going to come out to our parents? Like, what's gonna happen? I don't know if Griff ends up coming out to his dad, but I know that Dante ended up having a conversation with his father about liking Griff. Both of his parents eventually know, I guess, that they're together. They live in the brownstone together, and they kind of live happily ever after. I just was surprised at the lack of real conflict in this book, and in the lack of real discussion. 2 seemingly straight guys, they have like been with women basically their entire lives, haven't even had like, I don't know, the inclination towards men, coming to terms with their sexuality and coming to terms with the fact that they're going to be in a relationship that's not accepted widely at this point in time. It was definitely a wish fulfillment situation. So if you're going to do that, why can't we have more in terms of like relationship development and like more time with them confessing their feelings for each other and like what their relationship's gonna look like going forward? You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but I just felt like this was a little unsatisfying in the romantic relationship development, and considering the language usage, I wasn't super into the like sexier moments. Like they weren't terrible, and some of them were actually pretty hot if I didn't think too much about the language choice there, but I don't know. This wasn't perfect or anything. I didn't hate it. I'm glad to see that there was an LGBT romance on this list, even in 2011. Like that's really awesome, I think, because I think there are some years after 2011 where there aren't any LGBT romances present, so it was cool to see that in 2011 in the first Goodreads Choice Awards. Now let's move on to a book that I just sped through last night because I was not in the mood for it. 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James. This book I read back in 2013 for the first time, so it's been 10 years, and wow, I feel old. I remember reading this back in like early college because it was getting a lot of buzz in 2011, and I didn't get to it until 2013, I guess, but this one I think took me by surprise this time around because I expected it to be kind of like a fun romp, giving me the same vibes as Twilight in that like it's not a fantastic story or anything, but it's got that like addictive sort of fan fiction writing, and I didn't really feel that way, sadly. Was finding myself rolling my eyes a lot at the sexier scenes. They were surprisingly tame for a book that is about a BDSM relationship. I was also like particularly annoyed at how often Christian used the word baby during their sexual encounters. I'm not someone who like hates that word in general. It was just very apparent that that was the only term of endearment I guess he was using with Anna. It was a time. And I was surprised, I guess, too, at how clinical and like robotic a lot of the scenes felt. I didn't really feel a lot of like depth of passion or like romance in the book. And I know that's not the point. And I know that this is not lauded as some incredible romance or anything, but I remember like genuinely enjoying it when I read it. And, you know, I guess I'm glad to say that my taste has changed quite a bit. It's like, do I even need to tell you what this book's about at this point? Because I feel like you know. Everybody knows what 50 Shades is about. It's a BDSM relationship between Anastasia and Christian. I think one thing I will just point out is that I did not realize that he's only 27 in this book. She's supposed to be like 22, which situations they get themselves into, I'm just like, how? I mean, I guess it makes sense that Anna's naive and immature at that age, but the fact that Christian's 27, like I'm 28, and I cannot imagine a guy having that level of like confidence and maturity at that age and like being the helm of a company. Like, it just seems unrealistic. I mean, it is unrealistic. This whole book is. But I guess I'm glad that I did a reread and a refresh, because this book really did spark the interest in like smuttier BDSM romances, I would say. Not that there haven't been any in the past that have existed, but this book definitely was the trendsetter. I read books from a Goodreads list. That was like my first ever list video, and those books were not published in 2015, but they definitely were very influenced by 50 Shades. There were a lot of like BDSM adjacent books or like alpha male Christian Grey type heroes in those books. So this book was definitely a trendsetter, and I can see why it was rated so highly. I'm honestly kind of surprised that this one didn't get the like top spot in terms of votes, but I'm glad that it didn't, because I am 50% into Lover Unleashed by J.R. Ward, and this is by far my favorite book that we have been reading, or that I have been reading for this video. So this is like the 8th or 9th book in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series by J.R. Ward. It is a paranormal romance series following a band of brothers in arms, essentially. Vampires go out and kill their sworn enemy, which are lessers. Lessers are essentially turned humans who have given up their souls to serve this evil dude, I guess. And their mission in life is basically to hunt down vampires and take them out. And the Black Dagger Brotherhood protects their species, their own vampiric species, against the lessers. Each book is about a brother in the Black Dagger Brotherhood finding his mate for life, his Shellen. There's definitely like a whole myriad of made-up words, I guess, in the series, which I like, and I think it kind of lends to the world building. But each guy finds his Shellen, his mate, or I guess technically some of them are gay, so they find their Hellrens, which is like the male equivalent. Anyway, this particular book is actually kind of a deviation from the previous books in the series, because it follows our female vampire. She is the twin sister of one of the characters. I don't want to like spoil like the connections here, because if you want to read the series, I recommend it. She is the twin sister, the long lost twin sister of one of the vampires from the previous books, and she has been recently injured. She had a spinal cord injury, and they need help quickly to kind of like reset her spine, try to get her healed up, because vampires heal really quickly. So they send out their resident doctor to go find a surgeon to operate on Pain, is her name. All of the vampires have like, I guess, warrior names if they are part of the Black Dagger Brotherhood. Vicious and Sadist and Fury, and anyway, find a surgeon, he operates on her, and they form kind of a connection. She finds that she is able to basically make use of her legs if she is having like sexual contact with this guy named Manny, the surgeon. They have this kind of like inexplicable draw towards each other, and I'm sure we're gonna find out that they are actually mates. He is human though, which obviously complicates things. Our king, Wrath, doesn't really like to bring humans into the fold, because they're not really supposed to know that vampires exist. Obviously that rule has been broken a couple of times, because there are human mates to some of these vampires. It is exceedingly rare though. Though I guess his mate is a human, or was a human at one point. Anyway, in this world, vampires cannot be turned. They are made, and vampires do not feed on humans. They feed on the members of the opposite sex of their own race. We get to see the relationship unfold between Manny and Pain, and we also get to see sort of like peripheral relationships in these books. That is not always the case in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, but as the series continues, we get to see some of our like favorite pairings come into the fold again, and we get to see how these relationships work out beyond just that initial like, oh my god, I'm so in love with you, let's get married. And I really like that. I like to see these kind of like domestic squabbles, I guess, between beloved characters. Sometimes it can be frustrating, but I think it's so realistic, and it's a fun way to get to revisit old characters. So in this book, we also get to revisit Jane and Vicious. Jane is the resident doctor, so that's kind of how they're involved in this whole situation. And then we also get some other kind of side plot lines with a like new band of brothers, I guess you could say, these kind of like rebel soldiers. We get their point of view in some other chapters. So there's a lot going on in this book, and I will say I don't know that this would be a great paranormal romance to just jump into if you haven't read the other books in the series before. I don't think you'd be totally lost. I think the battle between the lessers and the vampires is definitely definitely laid out for you in the beginning of this book, but I think some of the other relationships you're not going to appreciate as much. Like, I don't think you're going to care about Jane and Vicious and like their relationship squabbles or this like other band of brothers. Like, I don't think it's going to matter to you. That being said, I'm really, really liking this book. I didn't expect to be honest. Like, I did because I enjoyed it the first time I read it. I think I gave this book 5 stars, but I didn't expect to enjoy it upon reread as much because the Black Dagger Brotherhood series was my first true romance series that I read. I think I read these books like freshman year of high school, definitely like not age appropriate, I suppose you could say. I was looking for like vampire romances after reading Twilight that had a little bit more sexuality. I found that in these books and I really have a strong attachment to them, so it's hard to be totally objective. And so I assumed going into this book, like, I'd have an attachment to it, but I wouldn't necessarily like it as much as I did the first time. And frankly, like, this is just an enjoyable read. J.R. Ward is a very talented author. She has created a very well fleshed out world that is so interesting and different from other worlds that I've read before. It definitely has like a 2000s feel to it because the story, or like this series in general, was started quite a while ago, and I think that's a common complaint that I see a lot is like, oh my god, these guys are like cheesy and I don't like the language usage and like the rap music that they're like constantly listening to. Like, it just feels very 2000s. I like that. I think that's fun. I like when series are not timeless in a sense. Like, I want to feel a sense of place when I am picking up books. Anyway, all that to say, I'm having a good time with it. I do think that the physical relationship between Payne and Manny being the thing that brings them together is not my favorite. I do hope though that as the book goes on, as the relationship kind of grows, we get to see that relationship grow. We get to see the emotions there and how he like loves her strength and stuff beyond just, oh, she's really hot and I have this like instant draw to it. I like the series. What can I say? I'm gonna go ahead and finish this book though, and then we'll be done with the dang video and I can kind of tell you like my final thoughts and feelings, though I don't think any of it's going to be particularly profound. Okay, so I ended up finishing Lover Unleashed, and it's by far my favorite book that I read for this video. It was just so great to be in this world that I personally really love, and I do think this was a pretty solid book. Now, is this book the best book of all time? Is this something that I think everybody needs to go out and pick up? I don't think so. I think it's a book that is a good continuation of a series. I liked seeing the multiple points of view, and again, the multiple relationships kind of develop over time, but I don't think this is like mind-blowing, groundbreaking stuff. I think that the relationship development between Manny and Payne could have been a little bit better. It seemed a little insta-lovey, even though there were moments of like helping each other and moments of understanding. I just felt like I needed more. It wasn't the most in-depth romance ever, which is disappointing coming from an author who I know is very capable of that. But like, I don't know, it wasn't bad. I still really enjoyed it. So, I mean, especially in comparison to these other books, it was leagues better. So, I don't know. What does this say about the state of romance in 2011 and how far we've come? I think personally that romance has come a really long way. I think it's really evident in my 2022 Goodreads video versus this one that there is just so much more to choose from now. I think reading is a renewed interest for young people now with the advent of BookShock, which is super awesome. But I also just think that with the diversity that we're seeing in the publishing industry, slowly but surely, we're just getting more interesting stories. Like, there were pretty much no books with people of color on this list, and there was only one LGBT romance, whereas in the current Goodreads Choice Awards, no, I'm not saying it's like much better in terms of the Choice Awards, but I think like romance as a whole is a lot more diverse and has a lot more to offer, not only in terms of like race, religion, etc., but also in terms of like subgenre. There's just not very many contemporaries in this list. Like, there were so many paranormal books in series. There were a couple of like small town style romances. There was 50 Shades, but we didn't get just like guy meets girl sort of contemporaries. And I'm not saying they didn't exist in 2011 because they certainly did, but I think that we're getting so much more now. And I think the contemporaries now also have like the spice levels that people are looking for. You know, you don't have to compromise and read 50 Shades if you want spice. You can read a contemporary that has good spice levels. So I don't know if I have anything like particularly profound to say about this experiment, but I'm really glad that I did it. I think it was fun to kind of see what people were reading back in 2011 and just kind of see how much romance has changed. It's changed quite a bit, obviously. I don't have really any new all-time favorites from this list. Did again enjoy Lover Unleashed, but pretty much everything else was just like 3-star, 2-star DNF kind of stuff, and that's fine. Sometimes it's fun to just experiment, and I had a good time with this even if I didn't love the books. So in the comments down below, I would love to get your take on the state of romance in 2023. Are you excited about the direction we're heading in? Are there genres that you would like to see more from in this coming year? I'd love to get your take, especially if you have been a romance reader for quite a long time. That is pretty much it for me. I hope you enjoyed this semi-casual vlog style video for me. I love you all so much, and until next time.